You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back live here on the network for episode 2 of everyone's favorite bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are just mainlining these days. Welcome to all of you. We love to see you, no matter which platform you are devouring our content on. We love you all. If you're on the on-demand side, remember, all we ask that you do keep rating and reviewing either this show or the network. Or if for whatever reason your platform doesn't let you leave a review, then by all means, you can leave one in the App Store for our app. A lot of you like to do it there as well. Either way, it does help new people continue to discover the content. Of course, if you want even more content in your lives, we got you covered. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more about all that goodness, including great pro Q&As, options oddities, giveaways, live access to all the stuff we do, and a whole bunch more. Hundreds of hours of content already available for you, for your listening pleasure over there, and more coming every week. And let's see what's coming for us on the show this week. First, let's go out to the quiet, the sleepy, some might say the snow-blanketed hamlet known as St. Charles, Illinois, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, glad you could dig a tunnel to your house just so you could talk to us today, sir.
Well, I mean, it's not much of a tunnel. We got like maybe an inch last night, I'd say. So we're okay out here, but always good to be on the Option Block on a Thursday.
You had to use a thimble to dig it, but a mighty tunnel it was. Nonetheless,
yes,
out there. Also getting a little bit of snow out there in the far shores of Maine. We are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, how go things on these snowy shores of Maine, sir?
Yeah, we had like a 2 foot. We had a couple days, and we got 2 feet of snow, and then we got some weird rain thing that happened for about 3 hours, and then it's going to go into a deep, perilous freeze tonight. So my entire road will be an ice rink. Basically. So it'll be quite exciting.
Not just a freeze, a perilous freeze. I like that. I like when the weather report just turns it up to 11. It's a perilous freeze.
In these days, you just can't have weather. It has to be a bomb cyclone, which we just used to call, windy.
Bomb cyclone, scary black ice, perilous freezes, all sorts of good stuff coming your way here on this episode of the Option Block. So let's get to it.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there. And it seemed like out there in the markets, we were kind of obviously treading water a bit until we were waiting until our GDP numbers could come out. Growing a little faster than expected. Market seemingly okay with that announcement because after starting to trend lower early in the session, now we are rebounding. S&P up about 0.33%. The Dow pretty much unched maybe 0.05% to the green. NASDAQ looking frothy, 0.75% to the green right now as well. So who knows? Maybe good news is good news again. Bad news is bad news again. Maybe all is right with the world again. Who knows? It's one of those time periods, listeners. Who knows what era we are in right now in terms of digesting news out there. But all that translates into a VIX that's down a wee bit, down to about a 1910 as we kicked off the show, down about 0.4 of a point from where it was on the Monday show. VVIX giving up the ghost as well. It was up to about a mid-80s, close to it earlier this morning, now back down to about an 81. That's still up 2 points from where it was on Monday's show. VXX 1160 down about 0.4 of a point from where it was this time last week. UVXY 510 down 0.3 of a point. SVIX 1760. So it's starting to flirt with it again. It's starting to kiss that all-time high, which I believe was around 1779. It set just, I believe, last week. So, yeah, starting to flirt with that again. Yeah, it was last Thursday it hit that level. Can we hit it again, listeners? It's threatening it today. Let's see, today. Oh, we said it today again. We hit it 1779 again today. So, yes, new all-time high today for SVIX. Can it hang there? We shall see. Those of you out there who looking for a little bit more bang for your buck for SVIX, you're getting it here again this week. UVIX. An intriguing handle for UVIX, a 19 handle out there for UVIX, 19.25 to be precise. That's up quite a bit from where it was when we last talked about it, listeners. All things UVIX. Good times out there, listeners. We were talking about it. Seemed like just yesterday with a 3 handle, and it almost was. And now we have our reverse split. Kind of a bit of a middling reverse split. If I'm going to be honest, I was hoping for a little bit more. Let's go 10 to 1. Let's go big. Let's go big or go home, right? Instead, we're kind of just doing enough to get us back into about 20. And guess what? We're already back in the teens again. They're going to have to reverse split this thing again in like 2 weeks. I don't know what they're doing out there. 19.25 for UVIX right now. VolQ, the NASDAQ Vol 23.5. Our only friend that is up from Monday's show. That's up about 0.5 point. Well, obviously, SVIX as well. But outside of the inverse products, the only straight up vol product that is up about 0.5 point from this time last week. Let's go around the horn. Let's start in the opposite of the way we came. Let's go out to the land of the rockingest of lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, let's start with the elephant in the room, which is just UVIX. Were you underwhelmed by this? Were you expecting 10 to 1 or a little bit more than what we got?
Well, I mean, there's always hope with the vol products. You know, we're
already back in the teens. We're gonna be reverse splitting this thing again in like a month.
And so it's funny because you said SVIX is at all-time high, which means UVIX would be at an all-time low, right? Like the whole, one goes up, one goes down thing. So you got that going for it. And I'm trying to buy some put flies in UVIX as we speak. But it's like they're too afraid to let these things get to the 50 handle or 60 or like something juicy, right? Like, no, we can't let it go up that high. It's kind of annoying. But
that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping to come in the end of this week and see like a nice 40 handle on you. How great would that have been, right?
Yeah, like that could have been fun, right? But no. So, it's the nature of these products. And then, where we are, again, like vol point of view, we have market up, vol up, because we still have this, the Fed is going to speak on Wednesday and vol can't go down until then. So you can do all the positioning you want now, but you're not going to get a lot. You're not going to get a lot of action. You're not going to get a lot of action anymore. So, I think what we're going to do, I think we will get a lot of vol action, and this is, I think this is kind of the beginning of, okay, Are we, recession, no recession? It's like, it just kind of looks like meh, like it's not great. It's not terrible. They've rolled back some things. I mean, we could all discuss the reasons why we had all these supply chain issues and all these mandate issues and stuff like that. But it definitely gumped up things to push inflation. Inflation went up, and food still up there. So, I like to see it when my grocery bill is still like less than what it costs for me to live in my house. That'd be great. We're not there yet. But at least at this point, we are at kind of the low end of where vol has been for what I would call for this vol cycle. And this vol cycle has been the Fed is going to raise. We had inflation. We had all this bad stuff over the last year. And we're kind of like right around the lowish area for that cycle. So it's an inflection point if we break through next week. So I think that could make a lot of your vol trades interesting. You're not going to get a lot of action maybe this week, but setting up for next week is from a vol point of view, I would say. But other than that, I think the market, again, we have that 3,900 thing going on, and we're pressing up on the high side of that. And so that part is good. So at least for the bulls, I mean, there's still a lot of bargains out there. So it's, do we make some new moves higher and hold this 4,000 level? So I'm waiting with bated breath to see what Mr. TOSAW says about all this. But I think again, every time I say I think we have a shot at it, there's something else that comes around. And I also seen, and would be interesting, maybe some of your guys on the commodity show can talk about, I believe that the administration is going to change how they calculate inflation. This is like, again, back into the PSYOP bill. Like, they're going to change the inflation calculation, BLS, instead of the 2-year average to a 1-year average, which would, of course, make the numbers look much better come April, which means that the Fed could get out of the interest rate raising business very fast. So it's a total, they're doing like they've done it before, changing all this stuff. They're doing the hand jive over the numbers again. So again, I'd like to see what some thoughts and some other commodity-esque people think about all this stuff. But that, I think, in my head, that would spell kind of the end of this rate rise thing. So I think that's, that has implications for stocks and asset prices and stuff like that. So we will see. We will see on how all that goes.
We will see indeed. Pay no attention to the man behind the corner. Let's just change those numbers up a little bit. They're too scary now. Let's make them less scary, Mr. Rockwell.
That's exactly what I said. They're way too scary right now.
We don't like to be scared by our numbers. Let's just clean them off, polish them up a little bit. We could always polish up the market as well, even if it's down 4%. He's the uncleist of Mike's. He's eternally optimistic. He's eternally bullish. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there in a slightly Uncle Mike type of day?
Well, I think that with where we are right now, we've held 4,000. That was, I remember on Around the Block, that was the number that I was kind of concerned with on Monday. And so far, we've held that number this week. I shouldn't say we've held it. We're above it now. We've been below it, but we're back above it now. And so perhaps we're delving into a new realm of maybe 4,000 can be the magnet number. I think the all-time magnet number that I've said on this show the most times, which will tell you how long this show's actually gone on, is 2,000 for the S&P. I remember it seemed that we were at 2,000 forever. But I digress. A couple things that are happening right now in the marketplace. Of course, we do have a little bit of a rally today. Nothing too crazy, but definitely somewhat of a rally. Bonds are selling just a little bit, nothing too crazy. I think a lot of this has to do with where people are just trying to get positioned before the big Fed announcement next week in a lot of ways. One of the things that's really sticking out in my tape, of course, is Chevron. That is actually up over 4% on the day. And that's probably the biggest mover that I have on my screen right now. Microsoft recovered very quickly from their bad news earlier this week. So, their disappointing earnings earlier this week. So we have that happening. And then the commodity space, a couple things that we have going on. We do have, excuse me, just having a hard time digging through the tunnel that I made. When you make a tunnel with a thimble, it's difficult for a fully grown adult male to get through there. But nonetheless, still have oil around the 80 level. Natural gas has come down 5% on the day, and it's definitely coming down on the year from where it was. Silver has remained relatively stable from where it was. And of course, Bitcoin's not doing good, but that really doesn't surprise anyone. Maybe it surprises people, but doesn't surprise me. And I think that just where we are right now, we are in the middle of earnings season, and earnings can have some effect on things. But we have the Fed next week. And not to steal the thunder of Around the Block too much, but with the Fed next week, I think that's the big market mover. And I think that dovish equals bullish, in that the second we get some type of dovish comments from the Fed, I think we're going to have a lot of rallying going on in this marketplace. Now, if we get more hawkishness, bears and hawks seem to go together quite a bit. And but for now, I think that if we do get hawkishness on Wednesday, then it's going to remind me of the song by my good friend Prince, who has no idea who I am and who's dead anyway, but he never had any idea who I am. But reminds me of the song by Prince, When the Doves Cry, are the doves going to cry next week? And that's what I think we need to wait and see.
Uncle Mike and Prince, just best friends for life. All right, let's go out to the major indices, see what's lighting things up out there, listeners. VIX doing okay today, 303,000 contracts on the tape. That is nothing to sneeze at, especially when you see the ADV is only around 523,000 contracts out there, listeners. So they are well on their way to that admittedly muted ADV. SPY, about 6.25 million contracts, the ADV 8.4. So SPY well on its way there. The S, same deal. 1.64 million contracts on the tape. The ADV right around 2.6 million. Let's do our same old song and dance, listeners. Let's just look really quickly. Let's see. Top 20 today. I see one contract that is not expiring today, and that is the 4100 call expiring tomorrow. We got 18,000 of those going up. But outside of that, everything else in the top 20 today expiring today. That gets us to this zero DTE thing. It's all the rage. I was down at the Securities Traders Association of Chicago conference this week. Listeners, our buddy, the Flow Master, was in. I did the options panel with him there last year. He came in to do it again this year. He always has some fun nuggets to share out there. And these zero DTE things, they're all the rage, all the talk at the conference, listeners. A lot of our audience is really into these things. A lot of the industry folks seem like they're much more divided, much more reticent on these products. Obviously, people have different agendas. If you're not an exchange that's named SIBO, you're not too excited about, you want some of that volume for yourself. If you're a market maker, you're a little bit ambivalent on these because they are kind of crazy to quote for. If you're some of the other people out there in the space, you're maybe a little bit concerned about the type of activity this is incentivizing, all kinds of stuff. So they are very contentious. It does lead to our question of the week. We'll get to the results of this a little bit later. But right now, we're asking you guys, the zero DTE trend, easy for me to say, the zero DTE trend, all the rage, and the subject of much debate at this week's STA Chicago conference. Our listeners are clearly trading these products in large numbers, but is this zero DTE explosion actually good for the options and vol markets in the long run? Gave you 4 choices. We could have actually had a bunch of different reasons, both yes and no, why they are good and why they are bad. We had to obviously narrow it down to 4 for you folks out there on Twitter. We gave you 2 of each. Yes, gives retail cheaper access to SPX. And yes, at the end of the day, it's just enticing more traders, which is good for everyone. Or no, at the end of the day, this is just gambling paper. Or no, these are gamma bombs. I love that one. But let us know your thoughts over there at Options. Just went live right before showtime. We'll come back to it a little bit later in the show, listeners, and see what you folks are thinking as we keep on rolling out their small caps, IWM, 619,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV right around 750,000, and the Qs 1.86 million. The ADV 2.73 million out there. So both of those looking fairly robust today as well. Let's see if the single names are looking robust, and the answer is kinda. Nothing to sneeze at. Cost you 199,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That's not nothing. We've seen far lighter days, but it's also not 350 or anything like that. Instead, that gets us to our old friend AMC, making its way into the top 10 again today. AMC, let's see, today is kind of unched off slightly on the day, so not participating in the Uncle Mike Joy Fest that is the market out there today, but still good for 199,000 contracts. Number 9, we've got our old friend Intel, at least my old stomping grounds out there. Also good for 199,000. So we're at number 9. We still haven't broken 200K. That's kind of weird. 29.5 is where Intel's hanging out, off about a quarter right now. Obviously, rough times for them. PC sales are not exactly booming out there. But this is an interesting cycle. People have been talking down earnings for Q1 and Q2 here for a while now. People are expecting this season and maybe next season to be pretty dire. So if these names can do a good job of playing the earnings game, of talking things down going into the announcement, maybe we'll see some decent responses as a result. And number 8, I haven't talked about this one in a while out here, listeners. 218,000 contracts. That gets us to Pfizer, off about $1.20 today, trading right around 43.90. They got downgraded out there today, so not exactly a boom day for them. And again, good for 218,000 contracts. Number 7, we get to the chip zone a little bit early today. This is AMD, listeners. 243,000 contracts today. AMD off about $0.50 as well, close to it, trading 74.5 right now. So AMD also not feeling the love. It started the day at 76.5, trading 74.5 right now. So no love for AMD today, even though the rest of the market's looking nice and green. Number 6, a name that has been green pretty much ever since we did that poll about it, listeners. We have been just the chef's kiss here on Meta. They are good for number 6 today, 292,000. Maybe the layoffs and a few other things also had something to do with it, but I'm going to put it down to our poll here. Meta up again today, 146.10, up 460, or 3.25%. And this thing was just trading $88 not too long ago. So huge pop out there in Meta, in spite of the fact that in all of our polls, nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. You guys thought it was the ugliest dog out there, and yet it's looking fairly pretty out there right now. Number 5, we've got the aforementioned Softy, Uncle Mike's favorite out there now as well. 381,000 contracts on the tape for Softy. They are, as he mentioned, rebounding pretty nicely today, up about 1.5% or about $3.50, trading a little bit north of 244 right now. Not too long ago, they were trading 213. That is their 52-week low. Looks like that came back in November, so they have rebounded nicely from that. Number 4, the other half of the chip zone, it is NVIDIA, listeners. A little over 500,000, 545,000 contracts to be precise. So a big jump between 5 and 4. NVIDIA, 500,000, 545,000 contracts trading 195 and about a third, up about $2.50 today, listeners. So a nice little pop for them out there. They're also well off their 52-week low of 108.13. That also came back in that October timeframe. So intriguing, nearly doubling from its 52-week low. And then number 3, yes, again, I said number 3. This is starting to become a trend, listeners. This is interesting. Apple, number 3, a paltry 699,000 contracts on the tape. Apple up $1 today, 142, about 90 or so. Nice little bounce here from their low that is set not too long ago of 124.17. So Apple is green. That means all is right with the world today. Number 2, usurping Apple yet again, listeners. It's the Amazonians, 729,000 contracts on the tape for them. 97.80 is where they're hanging out right now, up about 60 cents. And again, they've also had a nice little pop from their low of 81.43, which also came around that time of when we did that poll with Facebook versus Amazon. Intriguing stuff. Obviously, they haven't had anywhere near the rebound that Meta has, but c'est la vie. Speaking of just rebounds, speaking of bounces, speaking of whatever you want to call it, number 1 is a thing unto itself today. No other name can touch it. We could add up numbers 2 through 6. They're not even going to touch it here. We're talking about Tesla. Man, they are on fire today. Of course, they just had their earnings. 2.75 million contracts on the tape for Tesla. I mean, I said Apple can't even hit 700K. This is just crazy town out here. You're talking 4X almost Apple in Tesla. I mean, this is crazy. 157.75 right now, up about 13 and a third or 9.25%. Again, this is the name that just set their 52-week low not too long ago of 101. Remember, and everyone was like, oh my God, the end is nigh here for Tesla. Get the heck out of Dodge while you can. Well, they looks like they played the earnings game pretty well. They beat on their earnings, record revenue. So the stock looking good. By the way, I happened to pull up what what the hot trade is out there today. And of all this nearly 3 million contracts going up, the most active contract, 166,000 of the 160 calls expiring tomorrow. I said we're hanging out at about a 158 almost out there. So folks are just playing fast and loose out here, just going straight into contracts expiring tomorrow. A couple of bucks out of the money. Did we get there? Yeah, we got there this morning. We got as high as 161.42. So those were in the money ever so briefly. So hopefully most of these 160,000 contracts were not picked up then, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. Let's go to our earnings calendar for the week. Like I said, it's a pretty hot one this week. I just named a bunch of names that are popping off. Let's see who we've got here in our freshly updated, hot off the boards, hot off the presses earnings reports from our friends over there at ORATS. We had Southwest Airlines yesterday, or I should say today before the bell. 36.87 is where they were going into their announcement. They were pricing in 3.9%. They delivered 4.6% out there. Let's see where they're hanging out right now. They're still about exactly the same price, so they haven't budged. You know, there's reports of government investigations going on at the Southwest now, so they have a lot of swords of Damocles poised over their head right now. Intriguing. That didn't translate into that much more earnings, but it seems like their analysis from a straddle perspective was pretty spot on. We already talked about Tesla. They were blowing the doors off of it. They were pricing in 8.3% listeners, and they ended up delivering nearly 10%, 9.7%, and they're a little bit shy of that right now. So they're actually getting closer to about 9%, which is not that far away from their straddle. So again, if you look at the full range of motion out here, they got up to almost 161.5, but intriguing stuff out here for Tesla. Still hanging out close to its straddle. A good old Beamer, they're joining the party out there of, hey, it's what all the cool kids are doing now. We're laying everybody off. So Beamer getting into that as well. They popped off yesterday after the bell. 140.75 was where they were trading going into their announcement. They're pricing in 4.2%. And did the straddle traders get it right out there? Yes, they did, listeners. They delivered 4.4%. So that's pretty darn impressive. And they're hanging out pretty close to that level right now, actually. So pretty darn close out there. These are just the names that were popping off before the bell and after the bell yesterday, listeners. We have updated reports just for all those out there for you. Now names popping off later this week. Actually, we have more. We have more popping off before the bell today. Again, this is a hot time here for earnings season here. Let's go out to, we don't talk about the credit cards too often. Let's go to MasterCard. They were this morning before the bell. 382.40 is where they were trading. They were pricing in 3.3%. That's probably why we don't talk about them too much. Not a lot of juice out there. And they delivered, 1.8%. So underperformance here for the credit cards. Let's go out to American Airlines, a name we've talked about quite a bit since the onset of the pandemic. For a while there, especially towards the end of 2021, it seemed like folks were just loading up on all the catastrophe puts they could possibly find out there in American Airlines. Was this name going the way of the dodo? It didn't look good for them. Fast forward a year and change, they're trading 16.25 right now. They were popping off before the bell. They went into their announcement 16.25, and they're trading 16.25 right now. So they are almost literally unched. They're pricing in 5.6%. Wow. Premium sellers rejoice. They had a brief sell-off. They opened at about 16.75. They dropped down to 15.75, and they rallied right back to unched, and they've been sitting there pretty much ever since. So, wow, surprising. Not a lot of action out there in American Airlines. Ton of names popping off. Everyone loves Wolfspeed. Wide bandgap semiconductors. Wolfspeed Inc. They're popping off before the bell today. We have legions of names out here for you, listeners. We'll let you go check out those reports for yourselves as we keep on rolling into our upcoming earnings reports. Really quickly, we got some names popping off after the bell today. We've got good old INCL. They're after the bell today. Almost $30 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 204. In the past, they've moved about $2.50. So slightly less juice in Intel land. Is that merited? That's interesting. That's kind of surprising. Let's go out to Visa today after the bell as well. 225 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $7.50. In the past, they moved $8.35, so a little bit less juice there as well. Interesting. Let's keep the party rolling. Let's go out to everyone's favorite name out there. Again, credit cards popping off all on our radar today. Let's go to AXP. 27th before the bell, 156 and 3/4. They're pricing in about 570. In the past, they moved about 470. So a little bit of extra juice in American Express. Let's go out to energy because we're going to talk about probably a little bit of that on TWIFO a little bit later. Let's go out to Chevron, 27th before the bell, 179 even is where they were trading. They're pricing in 4 1/3. In the past, they moved about 560. So less juice out there as well. Interesting. And you know what, listeners? Since they're popping off soon, let's go out to one of our favorites, one of our odd block stalwarts and options oddities stalwarts. This is AGNC, ticker symbol AGNC. Stop me if you heard of this one before. In particular, people buying endless amounts of puts in this name. We are still tracking. I've lost track of how many puts on this name. Let's see. They're popping off on the 30th before the bell, after the bell, and they're pricing in 38 cents. In the past, they moved 21 cents. So a pretty meager straddle, but still nearly 2x what it was before. So a wee bit of extra juice out there. We'll keep an eye on them, see how all of our puts pay off. Speaking of paying off odd block puts, let's get to it, listeners. It's that time, by the way, if you want to know, the earnings season report right now hanging out at a pretty robust 111%. So intriguing stuff. Still early days here. We only have about 80 names reporting. So many more to come as we keep on rolling right on into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we get whimsical. By the way, I should mention here, we also have the updated earnings trades report for you. A lot of trades being exited today that we've been tracking, including we closed out a long straddle there in everyone's favorite CalX, and in Virtu Financial closed out another straddle in CalX, another one in Virtu, another one in everyone's favorite out there. Some interesting names on this list. Lending Club Corp, ticker symbol LC, and CXX Corp as well. So closed a bunch of longs. Actually, those last ones, CSXs, those were long calendars. So if you wanted to see where we entered those, where we exited those, all the prices, it's all there for the report. By the way, not done there as well. Also entered a new long straddle today out there on Chevron. So if you want to keep track of all those fun earnings trades, check it out for yourselves over there on the site. It's all free. And who knows, maybe you pick up a little idea or two over there. Let's see what kind of ideas we have flown across our radar out there today, listeners. What did our crazy eye of madness, the eye of Sauron itself, what did it find for us out there today, listeners? Let's go out to... Oh, okay, this is everyone's favorite grocery chain. This is Albertsons. You know, they own Safeway. They own in Chicago area, Jewel, Osco, all that kind of fun stuff. Ticker symbol ACL. That should be ACI. Trading right now here. About $21 even out here. So intriguing stuff here for Albertsons. Let's see. On the year. Been an interesting year out here for all things grocery. A year ago, they were trading $27.50, obviously far higher. Then they shot up in March, you know, with all these input price increases. I guess they were just passing them along to everybody. So the market clearly liked all that early inflation after the invasion back in March, because they shot up to their high for the year of about $38 right around that same time. And ever since then, they've been kind of slowly dwindling. They got down to about $24.50 in October. And then they rallied it to the end of October, $27.50. And then looks like a bad announcement or something really just clipped their wings. They went from $27.50 to about $20.50 in the span of about a session or two. So they fell off a cliff, and they've kind of been hovering in this right around 21 level pretty much ever since. So I guess they're waiting for the next shoe to drop out here. And it seems like in the meantime, someone's going to take advantage of this to say, hey, if you're going to be hanging out range bound for a while, I'm going to harvest a little bit of the old risk premium, take some money off the table. That's what they did this morning, coming in, blasting away at 12,000 of the March 21. So straight at the money calls, listeners. They sold these pretty much on the bid for 40 cents. This was this was a nothing vol of 8.7%, which I guess makes sense. It is a grocery chain. It's not a biotech, but still 8.7%. That's not a heck of a lot of juice, listeners. The stock was exactly here when they sold these, 21.02, so it has not budged since then. And I guess the last few months, you could argue, is not a lot of vol to be exhibited. Before then, it was moving fairly aggressively. So intriguing stuff. They obviously have just had earnings because they're not popping off again until April 11th. So they do not get any earnings juice in here. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they feel comfortable selling this call all the way out to March. Mr. Rock Lobster, I'm hard pressed to think of another time when we saw someone selling a sub-9 volatility and a call overwrite. But that's what we have here today in Albertson, sir, going all the way out to March for a whopping 8.7% vol, sir. What say you?
I just was giggling on that one. Like, I thought, did Albertsons buy, or did Kroger buy Albertsons? Is it already merged? I can't quite remember the dealers of those. I would say that has to be the lowest vol I've seen in quite a while. You're getting what, 2% return to March to sell the at the money call. Like, I could have sworn there was a deal going on in here or something, but I have to say that's kind of a. You're basically saying this stock ain't moving now, and again, I can't remember if there was any kind of takeover.
The latest I can see from this is from the New York Times 3 days ago. They say the Albertson Kroger merger faces a long road ahead before approval. So
right.
sounds like our friend here read that article and said, "Sold to you."
That is what it appears. So maybe it's just they're just marking time, and they're going to take the money they can get for marking time while nothing goes on. So you saw that when there was a takeover or something, trading in a pit when the stocks are taken over. And generally, like, my rule was, if something's involved in a takeover or the SEC is investigating, good time to write calls on that stock because they generally don't go higher. And that's, I believe, this person is taking that idea to heart there.
All right, let's flip the script. Let's get a little bit more action-oriented paper out here. Let's go out to Phillips. We're just going to call it Phillips because the full proper name, listeners, is just offensive to my tongue and probably to your ears out here as well. Phillips here, ticker symbol PHG. You know these listeners, Dutch multinational. They've been around since 1891. Intriguing stuff here. Let's go out to where they're trading right now, $16.80. On the year, it's mostly been rough sledding for them. 32.20 is where they opened the year a year ago. They got up to as high as about $35, a little bit below it, $34.93. That was on February 25th. We all know what happened around that time frame. Not exactly good news for the markets or indeed the world. And they started selling off, at least out here, Phillips. And they pretty much hit their nadir, looks like, on November 3rd, 11.75. Since then, putting in the old rebound, getting up to a little bit north of $17 recently and still hovering right around $16.80 right now, kind of unched on the day today. But it seems like Mr. Rock Lobster, unlike our other friend who was content to just watch his stock drift for the next couple of months, we got someone coming in here today who says, you know what? Look out below here in Phillips. I see the bad moon is rising out here in Phillips soon. They came out here and scooped 10,000 of the April 15. So going out a little bit, going out to April this time. They paid 70 cents for these bad boys. The stock was exactly here when they bought these. Unlike our other friend who got an 8.7% vol, these were a 48 vol. So a little bit more juice being paid on these. And it's interesting they went all the way out to April because the earnings are coming up in a couple of days. It's on the 30th. We'll probably have a good sense of whether or not these puts are good in a few days. So going all the way out to April, it seems interesting, maybe excessive, but hey, who am I to judge such things? Oh, wait, that is my job. That's literally what I'm paid to do here on the show. So maybe they're looking for a couple of earnings cycles worth of protection here because you're getting out to April. You're starting to play with next announcement as well. Either way, it's not a cheap bit of protection or a cheap swing for the downside fences, but it is a pretty hefty one. Mr. Meatball, I apologize. Mr. Rock Lobster, someone's thinking perhaps we are heading back to the dark days of November and the 11 3/4 stock here, and everyone's favorite name, Sir Phillips.
Well. I mean, it's and there was a trade that Mark and I was trying to figure out today in Kohl's, where yesterday we saw like big paper and it looked like they're buying puts. It's like, but what I couldn't do is I couldn't reconcile the put purchase. It's like, okay, I get it. You want to buy the 30 puts in Kohl's, but what's the stock going at $20 or $25? I couldn't wrap my head around the use case, the efficacy, so to speak, of that put purchase. And, this might be another one. It's like, okay, well, they're paying 70 for the April 15 puts. Okay. I guess, Europe is going into the toilet or something. I can't quite figure this one out because this is another one that pays, pays a pretty good dividend, almost $1 a year. And I mean, yeah, I guess it can, go back to $12 when the bad old days in Europe and all the rest of it. But again, it could happen. I mean, I think this one has a lot more. This one looks a lot more reasonable than some of the other ones. So I think this looks a lot more reasonable, at least than the Kohl's put buyer was, the 30 level put buyer in Kohl's. So not an unreasonable trade. It's just, and I mean, the stock was $13 in the middle of December. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that whatever shenanigans are going on right now, or, the people are looking for a little pullback, but I don't know. It feels, they might do it. I think you mark this one. My guess is I don't think they're going to make any money on them, but I could be totally wrong on this.
It does have that whiff about it. I think we'll know more in a couple of days once the earnings are out. Yeah,
definitely around the earnings, seeing how European companies, this would be, I think, a good bellwether, just kind of standard industrial, huge conglomerate in Europe. Can they make, how do they weather all, like, remember the crazy energy prices? Remember Europe was going to go cold in the winter and frozen and like, you remember all that stuff? And like natural gas is like lowest level in 2 years, I think, or something right now. So it's amazing how fast the market can correct and find a way to get gas to people who need it. That price got high enough and it brought everybody. The production came about somehow. So, and I guess the Russians using that play, I mean, they lost a lot of customers. So anyway, again, there's nothing to be good said about that war, but at least from this point of view, I'd say this is a good bellwether test. And somebody's thinking like, hey, this stock goes back to $15. So it's good to check after earnings on this. Yeah, pay it off.
Yes, we'll look at this pretty quick. List of names I had on my radar to fall apart immediately. I can't say Phillips was high on that list, but hey, maybe I misspoke. Maybe this one is poised for a huge about face. We shall see. Listen, we'll come back to this in just a few days, and we'll see how it looks here after earnings if we have a better sense of these. And, of course, we'll keep them on our radar and pay them off when they do eventually close them out. If they do, let's go out to our final name out here, listeners. Let's go out to the world of transports, in particular, Knight Swift Transportation Holdings, Inc., trading around $57 right now. KNX is the ticker, by the way, listeners. Looks like they have earnings coming up after the bell today. So all this paper today is some pre-earnings goodness. And let's see, it's kind of been a topsy-turvy year that kind of netted out to nothing for them. A year ago, they were trading $54 and change. Now they're trading almost 57, so they're up a couple of bucks, but it's not nothing, but it's not nothing to write home about either. They sold off pretty quick, down to about $45.50 in April. Then they rallied again up to almost 57 in August, and then back down to $46.50 in October, then back up to about 57.25. So if you were trading this as a range-bound name this year, you did fairly well. It stayed in a pretty established range for most of the year. Sold off again recently down to about 51 before rallying again back to where it is right now. A tick away from $57. And Mr. Rock Lobster, once again, we got someone coming in worrying about the bottom falling out of another name. This one going out even farther. They're going all the way out to May. This time they bought the May 45 puts. They 8,000 times. They paid 79 cents. Again, this is all pre-opening fun, or pre-earnings fun, I should say. The stock was a little bit lower, 56.80, but that means nothing. They're all waiting for the announcement out here today. And so it is kind of interesting to me, Mr. Rocklops, a couple of things. A, they got people preparing for apparently the end of the world in both of these names, or at the very least a pretty substantial sell-off. B, we have earnings coming up fairly soon. And then instead of picking up a contract that just kind of gets you through earnings, maybe you go out to February or something like that. No, everyone's going out. In PHG, it was to April, and now in Knight Swift, they're going all the way out to May. So I guess folks are they can't buy enough time, so they need all the time they can get.
Well, yeah, and I think that's like the double dip, or the recession happens, or, all of these things. Now that the Republicans are back in Congress, you actually start talking about cutting the deficit. I love it when they actually pretend all of a sudden, after signing on to these massive spending bills the last 2 years, they're all of a sudden now concerned that the government is spending too much money and paying 4.5% for the privilege to do so now. It's like, wow, knucklehead city. So I think at least this is one, again, where they're buying puts like kind of at the bottom of the range on this. So it's a hard one to wrap your head around as far as what do they see on this. So, and it could be maybe a stock hedge. Maybe they bought the stock and a hedge from an existing position. Something along those lines is certainly possible. But anyway, I just look at this. I'm like, okay. I just don't. I don't see it, but I could be totally wrong on that. But I think you might get a point where some traders are looking at, wow, we've really got back to 4,000. This is all bull. We should be 3,000 because everything's going to be terrible, and they're trying to get ahead of it a little bit with because we do have pretty much the lowest vol we've had in a year, like within a point. So I think in a lot of this name vol is getting very, very inexpensive, and and some of names like this, maybe just it's the buy it when you can, not when you have to school of put buying and options.
He obviously didn't want to buy the Feb double puts. Those are trading $1.30. He said, I don't want those. Those are too rich for my blood. And then he looked at the March 45 puts. Those are trading 30 cents. Could have got those for a decent discount. He said, no, I'm going to go out to May and pay nearly 80 cents instead for the 45 puts. I don't know. The strike selection always.
It's a head scratcher. Yeah. I like that. I like that diagonal put spread where you buy the Fed.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. And you're still paying. You're still paying like 60 cents for the privilege. Good times. Good times here in Knight Swift. Well, no, this one is after the bell today, so maybe we can come back to this one next week as well and have some more insight into what do you think about these listeners? Do you think these are people preparing for kind of, this dire apocalypse to come in these names? Or is perhaps something else afoot? Obviously, people are putting their money where their mouth is in terms of expressing at least some concern about downside in both of these names. Interesting names, too. Intriguing stuff. Are these just canaries in the coal mine? Are we all going to be Uncle Mike whistling past 4,000 to the upside? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's hear from you folks. We get on into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's get out to the mail block. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this whole 0 day to expiration phenomenon has kind of just taken a lot of the options trading world by storm. Obviously, the options industry has followed suit. It is a very hot topic, surprisingly contentious. A lot of people have a lot of various opinions. I've been talking about this a lot with people this week at the STAT conference, and people are on all different areas of the spectrum when it comes to these products in terms of whether this is a good thing, whether this is a bad thing, the impacts we were talking about here on Vol Views and other shows. Is this the reason why VIX has been quote unquote muted of late? It's hard to believe that all this paper in SPX doesn't have some sort of impact on it. I mean, SPX has kind of been transformed almost overnight into a 0 day product. So is that not going to have some impact on VIX? Probably is. So a lot of things to be unpacked there. We asked you folks last week, just along those lines, is this zero DTE trend, is it a fad or is it the wave of the future? Is it here to stay? And almost 2/3, pretty much exactly 2/3, 66.7% of you said, yeah, it's here to stay. Exactly a third, 33.3% saying it's a fad. So you folks like them, which I understand. I'm just trying to get a little bit more nuance into exactly the thought process out here on these products, because it does seem to be many and varied out there. So like I said at the top of the show, we asked another question this week, trying to carve that onion up a little bit further out there right now, saying essentially, is this zero DTE trend? It's all the rage. A lot of debate going on about it right now. You folks are clearly trading these things, but is this explosion of everything zero DTE, is this good for the overall options market in the long run? Again, gave you 4 different ways to slice that onion. Yes, this gives retail cheap access to SPX. Or yes, this is just overall enticing more people to trade options, which at the end of the day is a good thing. Or no, this is just straight up gambling paper. And I was even talking to the Flow Master about this yesterday, and he was showing me some 2-lot he did or something out there, and just he made $2 on a 2-lot, and then he was just laughing about how it is just gambling, but it kind of is. Or no, they are just gamma bombs, and they're going to blow up in all of our faces out there. So I'm curious. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with the Uncle-list of Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are your thoughts on these products? I know in the past you've said they were here to stay, but where do you fall on our poll? These a good thing or a bad thing? And then what do you think our audience is voting for?
I think it's a good thing both ways for me and for the audience. It does enhance more liquidity. If you're a rambling, gambling man or woman and you want to get into this, then by all means you can. But if you keep your risk in check and don't do it with a lot of money, I have no problem with that. It's like people that get mad at the option business because they lost all their money. It's kind of like people who have bad health and then they're mad at McDonald's and they ate McDonald's their whole life. Now, McDonald's, it's good in moderation, but if you eat the stuff every day, it's not good for you. But I guess it's not good in moderation, but it's not going to hurt you in moderation. Just by the same token, if you're going to be overly aggressive with your trading style, limit the amount of money you use with it. So I think it's good. I can see a lot of cases for hedging. I can see just a lot of good things with it. I'm a fan.
Uncle Mike, all in on all things zero DT. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your thoughts? Would your thoughts change if you were still down on the floor making markets on these things? And then what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
No, I mean, I think I have to be honest. I think it's a perfect product. I mean, if you're a day trading type of person, like me personally, I'm running too many products at Option Pit. Like that would be like an all day thing. Right. And to me, it's not very interesting. Like, okay, making money is cool and all that sort of stuff. But you know, I want a little variety in my life, but I could see how, you know, people, institutions, whatever, there's a lot of opportunity spreading, and like, it's kind of crazy because you have just that, you got that massive daily theta profile. And, you know, and obviously they move, you got the gamma too. So like you get kind of, it's a lot in one package. So I think listeners would like it. At the same time, it is a very dangerous product for somebody that has no idea what they're doing with options. You know, I could see how somebody does one thing once and they do it and they're like, wow, this is great. I've got the secret. You know, everybody's like, I got the secret. And then it just blows up in their face and goes horribly wrong one other time. So I think the listeners like it, and I think it is a great product, but it's, you know, it's not for the beginner. Let's put it that way.
I am going to petition the SIBO to change the name to Gamma Bombs. I think it just rolls off the tongue. What do you think? Trade those Gamma Bombs, kids.
Yeah. Gamma Bomb. See, I think that's an appropriate use of Gamma Bomb.
If you're down with a little Gamma Bombing, as long as you know what you're into, yeah. If you call them Gamma Bombs, then you can't say you didn't know what you were getting into, right? I bought the Gamma Bomb. I didn't know it could blow up in my face. You can't say that because it's right there on the package. Gamma Bomb. Lawyers would love it out there. Intriguing stuff. There's a lot more to get into about this fun, listeners. We probably will in the future. Some intriguing ideas that were bandied about yesterday about what would happen if these were to expand to single names and names that are not cash settled, like your Apples and your Teslas and all the various skullduggery that could go on there. We won't get into that now, so we'll just keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, we shall start with you. What are you keeping an eye on until our next show on Monday, sir?
Well, I want to watch, I don't think we're going to get a lot of movement between now and Monday, but I could be wrong. I'm getting geared up, getting my popcorn ready for sitting back and watching the Fed next week. So I guess not for Monday, but more for Wednesday of what I'm watching. In the meantime, just trying to manage risk accordingly. And if we get another little dip down to the 3,900 level, would love to add some more deltas.
I can see Uncle Mike kicking back in the St. Charles Wealth Theater room, popcorn in hand, zooming in on good old Powell, measuring the briefcase with his own ruler. All sorts of fun to be had on Fed Day in St. Charles Wealth Land. Mr. Rock Lobster, what is your own personal Fed Day tradition? Do you also kick back with some popcorn to enjoy the festivities? And what are you watching between now and Fed Day, sir? Oh, no. He has hit the dreaded mute button.
Oh, I'm talking to gosh darn it. I thought,
he hasn't done that in a while.
I know. He's been good.
About a year since that's happened.
I don't know if it's been a year. I won't go that far. I would say a month and a day.
Yeah, so maybe a month and a day. But TOSAW, I appreciate you having my back like that. So I think, Fed Day is Wednesday, I believe. And I think they're gonna raise just like they said they were gonna raise. And the market expects it, and I don't think the market cares at this point. And again, like I see this BLS shenanigans happening, and you guys tell me on the reporting if I'm accurate, but I believe so. And I don't know. I'm looking at vol, the market, and just like it feels like it's starting to be the beginning of like the next phase. So I think we will see. We will break the 18 handle next week for VIX. We won't do it this week. The news has to come out. And, I don't know how much movement we get out of SPX because we have rallied a bunch off of the floor. I mean, from October, like NVIDIA is almost up $80, so you look like a lot of these stocks have really come back hard. So I don't know how much more up momentum we get in the broader market, but it could happen. But it's just, and that's what I'm looking at. So everything revolves around the Wednesday, basically.
All right, listeners, that is going to do it for us today here on the old OB. But if you're saying to yourself, I need a little bit more content in my life, and I can also do with another dose of the Uncleist of Mike's, well, you are in luck. He is joining me in a little bit to break down the world of all things futures options on TWIFO. But Uncle Mike, if they can't wait that long, they want to check out all your goodness in between these episodes, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Or if you're looking to have a conversation with me, go to my website, set up an appointment at stcharleswealth.com. And if not, then stay tuned for This Week in Futures Options.
There you go. Uncle Mike, our new announcer here on the network. I didn't tell you that. He's practicing.
How about that?
He's all sorts of gigs there. For the Uncleist of Mike, check him out. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, where should they go if they want to get access to all your legion of products in the land of the pit?
Yes. 888-TRADE-01. Ask for Ted or Andrew. Not me, Andrew, but another Andrew. And we will be happy to hook you up with a 10% discount just for listening to the show. This is the only network where we will offer a 10% discount of all the stuff that Mark and I do, like only here at the Options Insider Radio Network.
Only place to get those sweet, sweet deals. If you want to cash them in, optionpit.com. Tell them you know me and maybe you're tangentially affiliated with or aware of that Rock Lobster guy. And maybe they'll give you a deal over there. Optionpit.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit with the Uncleist of Mike's to break down all things TWIFO. All of our pro folks hang out. We'll be back in a little bit. You guys will get it live in your ear holes right away. Your extra dose of Uncle Mike goodness. If you want to join those pro folks Get those live bits of goodness, all the other fun stuff we have, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Otherwise, wait for it out there on the network. Back again a little bit later for TWIFO, then back again tomorrow, of course, for Vol Views, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. After that, for all you pro folks again, with all things options, oddities, and back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.